2012 GMC Acadia, which should be the same thing as a Chevy Traverse. We're doing front pads and rotors. Start out with a 7/8. Get your nuts off. And it's awesome if you got impact tools. And if you don't, you got to do it the old-fashioned way with a 4-way wrench. Smack it to break it loose. I like to pull it this way to the caliper so I can get it all the bolts on the back. Rotors have a little Torx bolt holding the rotor on. This is a T30. It can be stubborn sometimes. If it's really stubborn, apply heat to it. This one, of course, came out easy. I put a lot of my stuff in a metal tray like this so I don't have to look for the lug nuts or the bolts later. Okay, 13 millimeters on the back. Take that out. A lot of times I do not take the top one out. I just cheat and leave it in and pull it out that way for a quick removal of the caliper. And as you can see, the pad is wore out. As you can see, the pistons are pushed out from applying the brakes. I use an old one, put it in there, and you have to push it back, and this should go back easy. If it's not going back easy, there's something wrong with your caliper. See how easy it's going? And you want to put this across so they both go back together. Okay, the pistons are totally back right now. They're flush. 7/8 for the lug nuts. 13 millimeter for the caliper. 13/16 for the bracket bolt. Once the caliper is pushed back, I like to get something to hold it. I happen to have a little metal part that I just put on it, and I attach it to my strut so it's out of my way so I can work on it. The next thing you gotta do is take off your bracket that holds your pads. A lot of times these have been on 100,000 miles. They have rust and corrosion. So sometimes they need a little help coming off. You can see it ground into the rotor. These, if they warp, they will replace them for free. Once you open the box, you get brake clean. They do come with a protective coating on them so they don't rust when they're at the warehouse. Do both sides real quick. And install. When you put your rotor on, you just have to make sure your bolt lines up with the hole in the wheel bearing. I like to put the bolt in there to hold the rotor in place. A lot of times, if you buy a mid-grade pad or a premium pad, they will also give the little brackets that your pads sit in. So you'll want to replace those. It makes it work better. Usually just pop out pretty quick. Just snaps down over this, holds it in place. And you got to make sure that it's good on both sides here where it's not overextended, otherwise it'll rub on your rotor. Next, I reinstall my bracket. Make sure they're started by hand. Impact it if you have an impact. If not, torque it down. And then I just double check it real quick. Make sure the gun's working good, which it is, of course. And you might have to do this if you don't have a gun at home. Perfect. Install the pads. And these little parts right here are going to push it back out. So you put it on the bottom, go to the top, make sure it's up. And make sure it slides nice and easy like that, because it's supposed to push it out when you release the brakes. You want to make sure these are greased well, because that allows your caliper to move back and forth. If these are stuck, it'll wear your brake pads prematurely. You could have also removed this one like we did the bottom one, but I like to cheat and just do it that way and just slide it back in. Put on disc brake quiet. It just helps against squeaking. Next thing is you put this back on, but you see how this is bent? You have to make sure that your hose is not twisted. Because if it's twisted, the fluid won't flow through it like it's supposed to. And then you just put this one on here. See how easy it is? Instead of taking that off like there, just slide it like that. And that's working good. So every time you touch that brake, it's going to move. Squeeze it together. Slide it down over it. Push this in on the bottom. Grab my 13. Push it in. Sometimes these have a flat spot so it doesn't rotate. Put that on there. I, of course, use my Milwaukee impact. Double check it. Check the bottom one. We didn't touch the top. Double check it anyway. Everything's tight. Hose is straight. This side is done. Time for the tire. Always start these by hand, so you don't cross thread it. If you cross thread it, it messes up the threads. So you just want to make sure it goes in like that. If it doesn't go smoothly right off the bat, there's a reason for it. It could be bad threads, bad lug nut. So always start them by hand. And then you either use a 4-way wrench, if that's what you have, or an impact. I always go across. So it pulls down evenly. Just check it factory specs.